one who doesn't roll the dice can never expect to roll a 6. I had the good fortune of rolling the dice of the YouTube algorithm and stumbling upon a video from fellow YouTuber Studio Kuma where she made a punch needle dice. And me, being the yoinker and twister that I am, immediately wanted to bite the idea and make one for myself. A giant dice would serve many purposes. It's a handy-dandy tool to pull out every time me and my perpetually non-confrontational friend group cannot decide where to eat when we hang out. Spoiler alert, all the time. It's all the time! Or as a piece in a life-sized game of snakes and ladders. The dream! Let's get started. Upon doing a simple search for dice on ye old internet, you will either stumble upon your basic cube dice with dots on each side from 1 to 6, or you'll end up in the magical world of D&D dice, which have more sides than I have brain cells. Not the dice I'm looking to roll at the moment, so we are going to stick to the basics by making a cube dice, but adding some creative flair, meaning instead of dots, we're going to replace them with something else. In the spirit of not stealing Kuma's ideas completely, even though her fruit dice idea is so cute and giving Animal Crossing greatness, I'm gonna replace the dots with flowers and make a floral dice. The plan is simple. Each side will have a different number of flowers ranging from 1 to 6. I drew up each side of the dice separately on Procreate just as simple line art. As you can see here, I've decided to get quite creative with the placement of the flowers, but still tried to make it clear exactly how many there are. I got them all onto 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper, and we shall print and trace these onto our monk's cloth. I want to make each of these dice sides different. By this, I mean I want to make each side different colors. And I think I have some mild form of synesthesia because I associate certain numbers with colors. Behold. I really want to start an argument in the comment section of this video, so do share your thoughts on this, because I think I'm right, and I think everyone else is wrong. Anyways, I also want to use different techniques on each side, just to showcase them and make each side of the dice look different. So we're starting off here with side 1. I don't really have a light red or pink here for the background, so I'm just filling in the background with white. But the background is just the background. It's important, but not the highlight. The highlight is the flower, and because side 1 only has one flower, I want to spice things up a bit and do some yarn sculpting. So I've got my Craftsman punch needle here. It makes taller loops than the Oxford punch needles, which is what we want for the flower details that I'm punching here. These are mostly space keepers, so that I punch and sculpt the main part of the flower correctly, but I wasn't planning on sculpting these anyways because I want them to pop out against the sculpted flower. Speaking of which, why don't we get into the messy and tedious process of hand sculpting punch needle pieces. I'm punching a few rows at a time, and then flipping my frame around to the front, and with my scissors, snipping each loop so it turns fluffy. Once we've got all our loops punched and clipped, we can then start sculpting, either by stretching our piece onto our frames backwards, or taking it off the frame completely, both of which I've done here. Okay, wait, I was gonna cut this out, but I just want to show you this true act of comedy. You know how earlier in the video, I showed you how I punched in the flower details as space keepers so I can sculpt the main part of the flower? Why? Why'd I do this? I think I was just distracted by whatever podcast I was listening to or watching and didn't even realize what I was doing until I already did it. I repunched those details again with a much shorter needle because I didn't want to waste the yarn I originally pulled out, and I was able to sculpt the flower, but what an L Chungus move on my part. Now, all that was left was to punch the rest of the background, which was super fun because it was just going around and around the flower until I reached the edge of the pattern. Which leaves us with this as the finished side 1. Oh, by the way, I did use a different red for 2 rows of the flower, as you can probably see here, and I did this on purpose to add dynamics and make it look cool, but also because I wanted to use up some scraps of yarn. God forbid a girly pop is resourceful. Okay, side 2, double the fun with 2 flowers. I thought it would be super cool to make this side the bead stitch side, which for those of you that don't know, the bead stitch and punch needle involves 2 colors. I did the classic border bead stitch, alternating between this hand-dyed yellow yarn and some white yarn, but I'm also punching the stems of the flowers in bead stitch. For those of you that are wondering, I'm using Briggs & Little Atlantic in dark green and evergreen, which is one of my favorite colorways. I honestly have no idea why I keep filming myself punching like this when I'm not even showing my face. Actually, no, this is good. This is good because I need everyone to know that I'm not AI or a fake account, because there are far too many AI bot content stealing punch needle channels on this website, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. Now, all that was left of side 2 was filling in the background. I used a combination of random yellowish scrap yarns and white. Did you know that green is my favorite color? If you didn't, well, now you know. Side 3 is green, and I'm excited. I have a ridiculous amount of green yarn, including a lot of leftover yarn from the expedition, my punch needle certification rug. I want to play into the different shades of green that I have and make a grassy, mossy looking border. I know it kind of looks weird from the back, but trust me, it looks really, really cool from the front. We're going to use more of my leftover green yarn to do a stem stitch on these flowers, and this is how it looks so far. Pretty cool. Now, for the flowers, I have some very light gray yarn left over from when I released my first punch needle pattern collection that I want to use for the 2 outer flowers. I originally wanted to use it for all 3, but I knew that I didn't have enough for it, so 2 is my compromise. And I wasn't really sure what color to make the back petals here. I tried this brown caramel color, but it just looked kind of weird, so I decided to switch to pastels. So as you can see here, the middle flower is white and the back petals of this middle flower are lavender, and then the back petals of the 2 side flowers are blue. And we're gonna finish off this side with a light green background. Full transparency, I actually had to dye a little more of this green yarn because I didn't have enough of it and I wanted to use it for the entire background. This side of my dice is so fun to me because of how it looks in contrast to sides 1 and 2. Honestly, I liked it so much that I ended up doing something similar for side 4. Again, I'm using some more green yarn from my certification rug here. I didn't think I had a lot of orange rug yarn left over, but I had a little more than I expected, so I added some orange corners to the side for a bit of a pop. Now, what I want you to do right now is take in this background stitching. So clean, so satisfying. Surprise, it's all gone. I didn't have enough yarn, even though I thought I did, so I had to dye some more orange yarn. And because yarn dyeing can be, well, a bit of a gamble sometimes, it didn't turn out exactly the same. So what I did was I alternated the 2 oranges. And I think it actually looks way more dynamic and cool and interesting, but it sucks that I had to repunch it all. For side 5, I also had a ton of blue yarn, so it took me a while to decide what kind of blue I wanted to use, but I settled on the colorway Peacock from Briggs & Little Super. For the stems, I'm going back to that evergreen yarn because I think a brighter or more vibrant green would clash with the blue that I'm using here. My favorite part about this project is using up all of the yarn that I had no idea what to do with. Like, I've had this neon blue yarn for literally over a year, and this finally gave me a use for it beyond like a scrappy project. So we're gonna fill out the background with some plain white yarn, punching up and down. As you've seen so far, I've been punching the backgrounds of the sides of this dice in various ways, directional punching where I outline the flowers until I reach the edge of the pattern, horizontally and vertically. These sorts of things make an impact on the aesthetic of your piece, so it's important to take them into consideration when you're punch needling. And all of this brings us to side 6, the last side of our dice. We have quite a few purples to work with here. I used a bright purple for the main color of this side, and then used some lavender and plum to do some details and outlines, and then used my snow-dyed purple yarn for the center of these petals here. I'm using this purple as the center because I dyed it with both warm and cool tone dyes, which gives it a really fun variegation that I wanted to highlight. And for the stem, I thought a pale green would look nice in contrast to these bright purples, so I'm using the Sprigs and Little Heritage yarn in the colorway light green. And after filling in the background with white and a little bit of lavender, we are done. All the sides of our dice. Yay! Before we get into construction, I steam pressed each side. I was worried about the flowers getting smushed, especially the side 1 flower that we hand sculpted, so I steam pressed from the back. Now, we're gonna do something new here. So I marked 1 inch out of the sides of each piece and 3/4 of an inch out of the corners, and then zigzag stitched on the lines using my sewing machine. I did this because I'm gonna be handling and fiddling around with these squares a lot. I could have just not trimmed the edges of my monk's cloth, but I felt that the bulk was unnecessary. But I didn't just want to trim the edges and not have them secured in some way. Monk's cloth frays easily, and too much fraying would basically ruin this project. And I've been working on this project on and off for a month, and if it got ruined because I was lazy and careless, I would have had a generational crash out. Great for YouTube views, horrible for punch needle. Now that all of our squares are stitched, we can start assembling. Now, let me tell you something. I had no idea how dice numbers should be arranged. I tried looking it up, but I kept getting different results, so I just copied the first image that I saw. I'm basically just doing an invisible stitch so that the monk's cloth doesn't show. It's pretty easy to do since it's just squares. This is way easier than that Christmas stocking we were working on back in December with all of the curves and the shaping. Oh my goodness. I'm using button and craft thread so that my dice stays together and the thread is less likely to snap. Watching this come together is so cool. Like, it's looking better and better with every stitch I make. I really want the stuff I make to last as long as possible and to also be repairable, which is why there's no gluing involved with my work. Truly, it has its use cases, but I tend to be a pretty vocal glue hater. Okay, we are going to stitch up until here so that we can fill up our dice. And what will we fill it up with, you might ask? Behold, an unopened bag of polyfill stuffing, tucked away in my basement that I dug out just for this. As you can see, I don't really know how much to use. I keep adding some, taking some out, but let's just close this up. Hopefully this is good. And now I present to you the finished floral dice. Isn't this so cute? It actually looks great as an accent pillow too. Both decorative and functional, we love to see it. Looking at it right now, maybe I could have added more stuffing. I'm rather inexperienced with plushy 3D work, so lessons learned for next time. And what would this video be without me testing this dice out for myself? Whee! This is so fun. This is so stupid. I love it. If you made it this far, this is the end of the video. Thanks for watching, subscribe if you haven't already, and go check out some of the other videos I've mentioned in this video. They're super great, and I think you'll like them a lot. Thanks again. Whee!